Hello everyone, welcome back to the final video in the James Bond mini marathon series I'm doing in time for No Time to Die, which is slowly on the horizon. It's mere weeks away now. We had the final trailer not a couple of days ago, and I thought it was really good. But yeah, we're on the Daniel Craig era, the current era Bond, and we're going to be talking about 2012's Skyfall, which was the 50th anniversary for Bond. Now this is a really unconventional Bond film because well, first of all, it's not got a proper Bond girl in it. There's not a lot of globe-trotting, which is a staple of the franchise, but it's predominantly set in London. And Daniel Craig isn't even my favourite Bond. For me at least, he's probably second to last behind Lazenby. He's above Lazenby, but below all the others. And yet, this film is damn near perfect, and he's the best film that I've covered in this marathon. And here's why. So let's kick off properly with Daniel Craig as Bond. Now, I just said then that he's not one of my favourites, and I don't think he's bad at all. I don't think any of the Bonds are bad. I think they're all great in their own way, but just some are better than others. And for me, Daniel Craig, he can do the grittiness and the action really well, and he does the emotional stuff particularly well. His era has been more emotional in terms of the stories. You know, Casino Royale, obviously his love of Vesper Lynd was killed, and he does that stuff really well. And this film, some really hard-hitting emotional stuff for Bond. But where I think Craig's Bond lacks is the charisma and the fun. The fun, definitely. Not that Craig's a bad actor. He can do it. It's just that the scripts don't inject a lot of fun for the most part. But that pretty much goes out the window in Skyfall, because Skyfall is such a fun romp, and I think Craig, he gets to have fun in this film. You know, it's a bit more big in scale, and I think Craig can really flourish, and it's something that I really love in this film. Speaking of the humour as well, because he's with M for a lot of the film, because M is like pretty much the main character alongside Bond, because there's a lot of, between M and Bond, there's always, the scenes at the beginning of the film where there's back and forth. Here, it's a lot of the film, and Craig can really do it well, because he's a great actor, and when it's written into the script, he does it so well, and it makes it so much better to watch for me. In addition, you've got M's death at the end, which is also a very powerful scene, and it allows Craig to do his emotional stuff brilliantly. You know, that's his main trait that I think he sort of nailed down to a T. And this, for me, for my money, is Craig's best performance. And I do hope that No Time to Die follows in this sort of path, because it'll end this year on a high, and I hope it's this kind of quality, hopefully. Speaking of which, you got M, played by Judi Dench here, and she's pretty much the main character, just as much as Bond is in this film, and she is outstanding, and she gets a proper send-off. In GoldenEye, she was given a proper introduction, and she gets a good beginning and end, which is the only time that has really happened for an M, because the others, they didn't, they would either drop from the series, or in Bernard Lee's case, he sadly passed away after Moonraker, so he didn't get a proper send-off like Judi Dench does. But she's excellent in this film, her best outing as the character. Having her with Bond for the majority of the film, it's so good, because at the beginning of each film, obviously you have the Bond-them dynamic, them bickering. Here, you get to see a load of it, but she still has that sort of, she still cares for Bond, even though she can be very stern and strict. She still cares for Bond in a kind of sort of motherly way, and it really comes across in this film in particular. She's very much at the heart of this story, and also with her connection to the villain Silver, who, she is very much at the heart of this story. And Judi Dench just gives an absolutely perfect performance. That inquiry scene is top tier stuff. I guess we'll now move on to Silver, the main villain of the film. He is really good. He's really creepy. He kind of reminds me a bit of Jaws, but I mean, probably not intentionally, but it's not just me, or does he kind of remind me of Jaws? Kind of obviously very tall, very imposing, but yeah, he's quite menacing. His plan is quite convoluted, but that's the thing, I don't really question that when watching it. It's just, it's not something you think about when watching it. And also the more personal side of it, as I said, it links to M, and yeah, he's a really effective villain. Not my favourite, but still a very, very good villain. The story for this film is fantastic. It's, a very personal story. It's very much at the heart of Bond. MI6 is infiltrated and destroyed. And when I mentioned in the Toronto Diaries review about sort of that bringing Bond and the MI6 and the Secret Service stuff into a modern society, when people at the time were asking, is there a need for James Bond anymore? That question of, is this, this old regime, is it needed? That's really brought up again, and I love that. And it's really distilled in that inquiry scene. I know I'm coming back to it, but that's the inquiry scene, like intercut with Silver's escape. That has got to be the best scene in the film, and one of the best scenes in all of Bond. It is nail-bitingly tense. And also love in this film how you get to see, Bond's home at Scotland, and it's not like overly excessive with, like, lore and continuity and that kind of stuff, but it's nice to see that. And it works for Bond's 50th anniversary. Speaking of it being an anniversary and sort of fan service and stuff, it's good that this film does have a bit of fan service, from the past. You've got Q and Moneypenny making their debut in the new Craig era timeline with Naomi Harris and Ben Whishaw as both Moneypenny and Q respectively, and they're great. I love how Moneypenny's on the field doing some of the action, and Ben Wishaw's take on Q is really good, and it's something, a bit different from what Desmond Llewellyn and also John Cleese did, but I think he's very good, and I would love to see him carry on, even years on. I'd love to see more of him. You've also got the DB5 Aston Martin coming back, and I just love M's line when when they first get it out, and it's just class. And it was nice to see it again. And it's like little nods here and there, like there's a reference to the exploding pen in GoldenEye, which is just in a throwaway line, but it's not excessive. It's the right amount of fan service, which is more that can be said for Die Another Day, the 40th anniversary, where it was obnoxious with the references. You had Halle Berry coming out of the water, bang on, like how Ursula Andress did in Doctor No, or the laser scene in Goldfinger was referenced, and a lot of references that were just so in your face. It's like, oh, do you remember this? But here, it's just a nice wink and a nudge, and it's the perfect kind of fan service. This film was directed by Sam Mendes, who also recently did 1917. Is that any good? Because I really want to watch that. Is that any good, people who've seen it? Either way, let's talk about Mendes' direction. He is superb in this film. Now, obviously, it's the 2010s. It's obviously going to look nice, but a lot of films can still kind of look a bit bland. Yeah, they can look a bit same. Even though, you've got HD cameras these days and the image quality is going to look nice, it can still be quite bland, but certain directors, like Mendes did with Skyfall, can really have their touch on it, and they really make it memorable. The cinematography, the colours, the lighting, it makes all the different sections of the film feel distinct and memorable, and the action set pieces are fantastic. Whether it's the pre-title sequence with the train fight and Bond using the crane to get on it. I mean, that's the kind of thing I love from Bond, That's why I love this film as much as I do compared to other Craig films. You've got Bond using a crane to get onto the other side of the train. It's just, it's a bit silly, but it's great. And that pre-title sequence is very tense. And, Bond got shot. And yeah, it is really good. And as I said, the inquiry scene cut in between with Silver's escape is fantastic stuff, and that action scene in the courtroom is incredible. It's, as I said, it's so tense. And then obviously you have later in the film the battle in Scotland at the big mansion with when the house is burning up, and the DB5, you get to see all the little guns and all the little stuff as well, and it's absolutely fantastic stuff, and it's absolutely perfect. Like, genuinely, I cannot find hardly any flaws of this film. I mean, there's a couple. Like, Silver's plan does get a bit convoluted at times, and M's death could have been something a bit more than just a straight gunshot, even though it's emotionally very impactful. That's it. That is literally all I have to complain about Skyfall. And those are just nitpicks. And that is why I give Skyfall a 10 out of 10. It is... other than The Spy Who Loved Me, which is my favourite Bond film, this is a second, because this is absolutely perfect. So that's the end of the video and the end of the Bond Marathon series, but not the end of Bond content on the channel. Be sure to like, subscribe, comment, what do you think of Skyfall? Let me know in the comments below. And I've got a mission. Finally, after all this time,